short period of time, say 9 months.
Say not, well, what is the person? Yeah.
You're about to watch Ben Shapiro's most viewed abortion debate online, and literally thousands of people in the comments were saying he shut it down with ease. Now, Ben Shapiro has debated hundreds of people on abortion, and even though their arguments differ, their underlying assumptions are usually the same. And if you stay to the end, you'll see Voddie Baucham expose the worldview with one of his most important breakout sermons from over a decade ago and correct it with the word of God.
Don't look down on their scientists and their biologists who looked upon Jews as things. That's exactly what our scientists and biologists do to the baby in the womb.
Happy Halloween, Ben.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I have an issue with your stance on abortion.
Okay.
Right, so you define life as starting at conception through biology, pretty much. But I think you take the stance that life is intrinsically valuable because it's life. And that's where I disagree. I think there's two things that make life valuable. I think consciousness, the ability to experience pain, senses, and stuff like that, and personal identity. In particular, psychological continuity identity. So the fact that we have memories, we have relationships, people have relationships to us. I think those are
Do you need both of those, or is it either or? I just want to clarify your position.
Either or.
Okay, so if it's either or, then people with Alzheimer's have real continuity problems, you can't kill them.
No, because people still have relationships with them, though, right? So like just because you have
I mean, you have a relationship with them, but with people with advanced stage Alzheimer's, they really don't have a relationship.
Okay, but for the sake of example, like let's say someone dies, right? The family gets to decide what you do with the body. Because I know what you say. When you say, someone says, oh, it's just consciousness, and then they're brain dead, you say, well, can you stab them? No, you can't. Because that's the family's decision what to do with the body. It's the person's decision what they want to do.
So if the family decides to stab them, it's okay to stab the
when they're brain dead? Yeah, if they want to
No, not brain dead. Let's say that you're comatose for a specifically and predictably short period of time, say 9 months.
Say not, well, what is the person? No. So I would say on the legal grounds, it would depend if what the person put in their will. If the person has made clear statements like, hey, don't pull the plug on 9 months, then don't do that. Because I think the first choice is...
Right, but let's say the person has not made such clear statements. Say the person can't make such clear statements.
So and he's just in a complete coma?
Let's say the person has not drawn up a living will or had conversations like this. They're in a car crash, they get in a coma, you know that in 9 months they're going to come out of the coma, and they're going to be fine. Are you allowed to stab? Can the family say, you know what, these 9 months, stab the dude.
Wait, so they're fine, so they're going to get their memories back?
Let's say they don't get their memories back.
Then I would say then that person is dead. And yeah, if the family wants to pull the plug, that's fine. I would have no problem with that, yeah. No, I would have no problem with that.
If you think that was bad, keep watching because it gets worse. But if you want to be a part of a community of Christ-centered people standing for Christ in a secular culture, then check out the Faith Talks fam on Locals for live Bible studies, exclusive content, lifetime discounts on Christ-centered merch, and more. You can become a member for free, and if you want to support the ministry, you can become a supporter. Check the link in the description. Let's get back to the video.
Because that person is
You're getting
dead.
into some dicey territory, dude.
No, I think that person is dead. Right? And that's the best way to define life, is personal identity and consciousness. That's what makes life valuable.
Right, so I think that, again, if you were to say both, that's too much, and if you were even to say either, I don't think either one of those legs stands on its own. Okay, because what you really mean, this is the thing about having a baby, it's a process of development. Right? And this is the point that I'm making. There's a period in this human life when that child does not have, or fetus or embryo, whatever you want to call it, when this living thing does not have consciousness and does not have a sense of identity. But in 9 months, it will have consciousness.
Well,
and even then, by the way, babies don't have a sense of identity for at least a certain number of months after they're born. And when
the babies can recognize their parents' voices after they're born.
That's not a sense of identity. Rats can identify.
No, I would say it is, because it's a form of memory, though. Right, and that's what I was using.
So are you a Jainist? Because animals also have consciousness.
I would say that killing animals is wrong. You have no problem with that.
So just to get this straight, killing Fluffy the hamster, deeply wrong. Killing a dude who who's going to wake up from a coma in 9 months with memory problems, totally cool.
So this guy says that life is only sacred if you have your own personal identity and consciousness. And what he means is, you have your own memories, you have your own relationships, and that's the life that is sacred. So if somebody loses those, even for a brief period of time, it's okay to end them. But there's some serious flaws with that. Ben's already highlighted some of the clear inconsistencies, but even his core arguments on their face make no sense. Then forget the person who's in a coma for 9 months. That means for 6 to 8 hours every single day, you are dead. That means 6 to 8 hours every single day would be okay for somebody to come and end it. No, of course not. Being unconscious is a part of life. There are different ways we may be unconscious, but it's a very well-established part of life. The second thing about personal identity. So babies in the womb have a personal identity. They may not be aware or understand that identity fully. And when they're older, they might not remember that identity, but it doesn't mean that they're not alive. They have their own DNA. They're forming their own heart, their own brain, their own spinal cords, the spinal cords that allow them to feel pain in the womb, for example. They are forming their own identity. They have their own identity from the moment of conception, even though they're at an earlier stage of development. So this guy's arguments essentially are just ways to justify something that he wants to validate, something he wants to believe in, which is the right to end a life whenever you decide. Now, you'd be right in thinking, this is a sick and twisted take. How can so many people believe this? Well, it's not because loads of people just wake up and say, yep, do you know what, that's exactly what I think about abortion. It's that there's a worldview that has permeated through our culture that so many people have been indoctrinated with. And because of that, they interpret these really critical issues through that lens and look for arguments to justify that position. And that worldview is secular humanism. And what is secular humanism, and how does it lead to people to thinking about life in such a flippant and careless way? Well, to answer that question, we're going to turn to Dr. Voddie Baucham, who's going to explain from the scriptures just how people come with these perspectives, but then expose it with the word of God.
If we ask this postmodern secular humanism this question, or these 4 questions, here are the answers we get. Who am I? The answer, you are nothing. You are an accident. You are a mistake. You are a glorified ape. That's all you are. You are the result of random evolutionary processes. That is it. No rhyme, no reason, no purpose. That is all you are. Why am I here? You are here to consume and enjoy. Get all you can all you get, sit on the can. That's why you're here. That's the only thing that matters. I remember when they asked the question of Lee Iacocca when Chrysler was at its apex and he was making money hand over fist. How much money would be enough? He was as honest as any man has ever been. His answer, a little bit more. Always a little bit more. Consume and enjoy. That's why you're here. By the way, when you put these 2 things together, you get terrible results. If I have no rhyme or reason for my existence, if I am no more than the result of random evolutionary processes, and I only exist to consume and enjoy, the only thing that matters is if I'm more powerful than you. And if you have something I need for my enjoyment. Because if you have something I need for my enjoyment, and I am more powerful than you are, and there is no rhyme or reason to your existence, then it is incumbent upon me to take from you what I need for my own satisfaction. Have we not seen this lived out in the world? Have we not seen the logical conclusion of this kind of social Darwinism? Have we not seen a culture that at one time said, there is one race that is further evolved than all other races? And because the Aryan race is further evolved than all other races, it is incumbent upon the Aryan race to dominate and or exterminate other races in order to usher in the next level of our evolution. But don't look down on them. Don't look down on their scientists and their biologists who looked upon Jews as things and not people in order to justify their extermination, because that's exactly what our scientists and biologists do to the baby in the womb. The same concept of eugenics, the same concept of all that is an inconvenient lump of flesh, or even more sinister, this child will be severely deformed and will therefore hinder your ability to consume and enjoy. Or worse, you are old and feeble. The end is near. You not only have a right to die, but you have a duty to die. We can give you this cocktail, and your children won't have to take care of you anymore.
You see, secular humanism is the worldview that says we've not been made by a creator with intention, with purpose, with meaning, with value, that all our value comes from ourselves. All our value comes from what we can produce, what we can perceive. And so if you see somebody who's not producing as much value as you think, or even worse, they're hindering the value that you can create, then you have a right, if not a duty, to get rid of that, to get it out of the way. And the idea that there's a difference between full humans and maybe partial humans, or little DNA in the womb, where does that come from if not from a worldview based on evolutionary processes, right? But instead we understand that because we have been made in the image of God, that whether we are 9 weeks old or 9 years old or 90 years old, our value comes from God in heaven. And our duty to preserve life also comes from God in heaven. So that even if things are inconvenient and difficult, that is where our duty lies. And to further contrast that secular humanist worldview to what the scriptures say, let's jump back into that sermon, which is an amazing sermon, to see what Voddie has to say.
Who am I? Who are you? The crowning glory of the creation of God. I don't care what anyone has ever said to you, what anyone has ever told you. I don't care if your mother and your father looked you in your eye and told you that you were a mistake. You are the crowning glory of the creation of God. I will never forget the moment I grasped this. I spent much of my life wondering why. I was raised by a single teenage mother in the projects in South Central Los Angeles. She was 17 years old when she became pregnant with me. She and my father married briefly, but she ended up raising me alone from the time I was about a year old. Raising me in the drug-infested, gang-infested projects in South Central Los Angeles, where at that time the average life expectancy for a young black male was somewhere around 24. I have often asked why. Especially in light of our culture today that looks at young women in my mother's condition and says, it would be irresponsible for you to carry this pregnancy through. But who am I? The crowning glory of the creation of God. Regardless of the circumstances surrounding my birth or yours, regardless of difficulties or infirmities with which you wrestle, regardless of your class or your station in life, because of the supremacy of Christ in truth, you are what the creator of the universe says you are. And by breathing into you the very breath of life, he says you have value. He says you have dignity. He says you have worth. And he says that I had better recognize that in you as well as in myself.
Now, just in case you're wondering, what on earth is he talking about? He's talking about Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 onwards. And Colossians 1:15 says that Jesus is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. Firstborn, not meaning that he was the first created, because everything was created by him, but that he is greater than all creation. And this obviously links back to Genesis 1, that tells us that we are made by God in his image to bear his image. Out of everything in creation, we people, humans, have been made to bear the image of God. If you're a parent, your child, from the moment they were conceived, were created to bear the image of God in such a way that nothing else in all of creation can. That means that no matter whether your parents abandoned you or not, you've been made to bear God's image in a way that the animals can't, in a way that the stars can't, in a way that the planets cannot, because we bear his likeness. Because of that, we have responsibilities to God and to each other. And so, yes, the abortion debate is one that we need to win in the public square. We need to have these big symposiums and debate people, and we need to act on policy and everything else. But I guarantee it begins in your home. You know, as you're watching this video, are you living in such a way that shows your children that, yes, you see them as creatures made in the image of God? Are you living in such a way that shows your friends and your family that you view them with the dignity of one who really believes that life is sacred, that life bears the image of God, whether they know Jesus yet or not? And in fact, because we see the image of God upon them, it even compels us to want to draw them to Christ in our witness, but also in our love. And the battle, the pro-life battle, I'm telling you, is first going to be won in the home. It's first going to be won in spirit-filled families that raise their children in the fear of the Lord, so that they go forward with pro-life values. They go forward valuing the baby from the womb to the tomb. And then we go out and tell other people, and they see our light shine, and then they will give glory to our Father in heaven. But unfortunately, not everybody who calls himself a Christian thinks this way. So in this video, you're going to see a pro-choice pastor get corrected on what the Bible actually says. See you there. Peace and blessings.